Never miss an episode of Create, Build, and Manage Daily again. Subscribe to our podcast and listen on the go.
Valencia Daniels is the owner of VoiceWorks, and she's joining me in studio tonight to talk about being a professional coach, professional voice. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Scott.
I don't know, I appreciate your time. This is always a fascinating category for me personally. But when did you discover that you had a voice that people wanted to use?
Oh my gosh, I think I had to be young, maybe about 5 or 6 years old. I know it sounds weird. I always had a passion for words and the pronunciation of words. And I was the kid that, you remember when you were younger, you would go to church and do your Easter or Christmas speech or whatever the case was. I was that kid that was the dramatic one on stage that just totally pronounced everything, used my hands, and was just passionate. So it just developed down through the years. So I would have to say, to answer your question, I was about 5 or 6 years old.
Okay.
Yeah.
Look at you.
I know.
See, for me, I was always asked to pray.
Okay.
That's when I realized, like, wait a minute, is this like a broadcast? Like, will you pray? So talk about, voice work is something that is so needed. I mean, everywhere I go, there's a voice. It's a commercial. I hear it at the radio. I mean, at the grocery store. I mean, there's a plethora of places that people need voice work. What kind of services do you offer?
Well, I offer a ton of services. I do narration work. When I say narration work, meaning like if somebody has a play or something and they need a narrator for the play. I also do motivational speaking. I also do infomercials. The person that you may hear on a Cialis commercial or whatever the commercial is that they're promoting, I would be that person. I also do tutorials. Previously being in corporate America, of course, I had the profound privilege of doing the actual tutorials for my job for corporations when you have to take a ton of compliance classes. So I do all of those items, not just one field. I don't do I'm not the person that can sound like someone else. I don't have that skill. But what I do is I'll go in there, read the material, make sure the material is presented in a clear, logical manner, and proceed from there.
Do you have your friends all the time asking, is that your voice I heard on such and such project?
Yes, I have had that happen before. People are like, hey, I heard that voice somewhere, and then they realize that it's me. So that is, I have had that
That's
happen.
kind of fun.
It's weird, but it's fun. It is. It's a little strange because it's like I can't listen to myself. So I'll have other people listen, and then they're like, oh, that was really you. But I just can't do it.
Really?
I know. It's some weird thing.
Yeah. So your voice business is primarily you. Do you ever work with anybody else or coach anybody else or help them?
No, I don't. It's just myself.
Okay. You ever thought about doing that?
No, not really.
No?
Well, I'll tell you the reason why. You always know that you can depend on yourself, but when you have to depend upon other people and there's a project due, you never know if that person's going to get it done. So I'd rather just depend on myself than have others fail, and then, my name looks bad.
There you go. Now, you mentioned how you don't do other voices. I notice that that's something you're real big on. Like, this is my voice. I'm unique. This is who I am. Why is that?
I would have to say because no one can beat me at being myself. And I don't mean to sound arrogant when I say that. I think we live in a world where everybody's trying to imitate someone else instead of just them being themselves naturally. And I think the best person when it comes to what you're good at, what you're skilled at, is yourself. Just being your natural self. No one can beat that. No one can ever replace me at being myself.
Makes sense. Makes sense. And by the way, for our viewers in the voice industry, they often ask you, do a voice like so-and-so. And I'm always like, then go hire so-and-so.
Right? That just makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But they don't want to pay so-and-so.
Right.
So then they come to people like myself where I could just be me and still get the same quality of work and what they're asking for, just not with so-and-so's price.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like, and the so-and-so is usually some A-list actor is usually what they're throwing out there.
Exactly. To promote their business or whatever it is.
And when you do voice work, do you often have to sign NDAs or you can't talk about?
Usually it depends on whom it is, let's say that. So it depends on whom it is, but typically, no, you do not have to sign an NDA.
Okay. And so what are some of the voice projects you've worked on that we might recognize you?
Oh, gosh. I don't even know
While
where
you're
to
doing
start.
that, I want to throw your website up here. It is voiceworks.com. And it's spelled differently if you're listening to the podcast, VOYCE, and then works is WORX.com. So voiceworks.com, where you can find out how to reach Miss Daniels and get a hold of her and hire her for your next voice project. So
absolutely. I've done items for Wells Fargo Bank.
Okay.
For Loan Depot, I don't know if you've ever heard of Loan
Yeah.
Depot. They were a huge mortgage lender up until this year when the mortgage industry crashed. So those are some of my larger projects that I have done for both Loan Depot and Wells Fargo Bank.
So you got the home studio.
Yes.
How
Yes.
long did it take you to build that, or are you still building it?
Actually, that's still being built. So it's in the works right now. But I do have a gentleman that I use right here in Texas, actually over in Fort Worth. He is my quote unquote producer, and I go into their studio to do everything while they're building mines out.
Okay. Are you looking forward to having the home studio?
You know what? I am, because I think at the home studio, it's easier to do things as opposed to going into the studio. And this way I could just send him the finished products and then he'll mix it all and send it right back. So it just works.
Now, when you talk about going back to this topic of being unique,
Yes.
does that spill over into a philosophy for everything you do, not just your voice work?
How did you know that?
I can just sense it.
Yes, it does. I think when passion collides with purpose, then yes, it does. And when I say passion, something that, you're really passionate about, something that you desire, but your purpose is that God-given ability to be who you are, that makes for a great success recipe.
That's awesome. All right. A lot of people want to do voice work.
Mm-hmm.
It's not an easy industry to crack into.
No, it's not.
And so what advice would you have for anyone who is trying to get into that business? Things that you've learned along the way?
Patience, being patient with the process. And the reason why I said be patient with the process is twofold. Just like in everyone's life, there's seasons of winter, there's seasons of spring. So usually in the winter time, if we're speaking from a natural aspect, a winter is a time where things don't grow,
Right.
correct? Spring is a time where there's refreshing, there's renewal, there's birth. So even though you may go through a winter part of your life, then you always have to know that eventually spring is going to come. And that's just like with anything that you do in life. You always have to be patient with that process because eventually things will turn around. The other part is networking. Get to know people. Ask questions. There's nothing wrong with asking questions. There is no dumb question. There is no dumb answer. But you have to be a person that's going to get out there, be patient, and ask the questions and network. Those are my...
There you go. There you go. All right, I'm going to give you, got 30 seconds. I want you to say, we're going to do a little voice work for me.
Okay.
Here we go. You're going to say, give your website, first of all. It's voiceworks.com. So you can check it out. Again, VOYCE works.com. 20 seconds. Just say, you're watching Create, Build, and Manage Daily with Scott Miller.
You're watching Create, Build, and Manage Daily with Scott Miller.
All right. Sounds good. We'll be back right after this.